Okay, yeah, we're officially on. All right, welcome, Paul. And why don't you
Introduce yourself.
yes, and introduce yourselves and your staff.
Paul Nizwicki, Executive Director of the APEC Commission, Gail Coyne, and Patty Daly of the Commission too. Gail is our Chief Budget honcho over there, so she's here to answer any of the questions. I think you have the numbers in front of you.
We do.
The major change this year relates to the EDC grant, really large grant, $350,000 has come our way. And we've brought on more staff to increase our capacity to provide those direct services to the towns that we discussed when that transition was in motion. And so that, I think, accounts for the biggest change in what you'll see. What you see is sort of a 10% increase on salaries and wages, and it's mostly attributable to that. You see almost a 10%, a 9.8% increase in grants and funding sources reflected down there. So it's actually a pretty skinny budget. It's pretty tight as we at the Commission continue to sort of try to increase capacity in those departments that need it and revisit every department from sort of the ground up, determining what they need and how many resources they need in order to get the job done. The other thing I would highlight is a process that we've been going through over the last 6 months, and Gail's really been in charge of this, and that's revisiting our regulatory fee structure. The fees structure that we had in place created a significant impediment to certain kinds of projects, these medium-level projects that would come through, and seemed to be, at times seems to be somewhat arbitrary in nature, sort of a one-size-fits-all. But it goes to the point of trying to pay for the cost of reviewing some of these larger projects. So Gail has actually taken a survey of how other similar organizations across the country bill for these fee-based systems. So she's got a nice synopsis that we're discussing with the executive committee now over the next few months to try to figure out how we can recoup some of our cost from the regulatory program in a way that doesn't provide provide a significant disincentive for people to come through the process of it. And it's a little bit tricky. But when we sort of overlay this with the RPP and the new land use vision maps, I think what's going to happen is you're going to have towns that have designated economic centers where there won't be any commission review. And that will lighten the burden. And then you'll see where commission review is going to come into play in the towns based on their land use vision maps is really where they want more commission review. And so I think we'll see a fee structure that has more of a direct relationship to the actual services offered based on land use vision maps and the way that they're going to be adopted and some of the different kinds of fee structures that we're talking about going forward. So you can see that we ran an 87,000 last year. No, we budgeted for 87,000 last year. Mm-hmm. But over the last 2 years, we have waived more fees than we've collected. Mm-hmm. In part, that's a function of the downturn in the economy and not wanting to stop projects that were underway. But that really relates to sort of a subsidization of that from the Commission, from the county's perspective. So we are back up to an estimate of about 90,000 this year. But really, we should be recouping more like 250,000 annually from a regulatory program. So that is in flux. And there'll be more discussion with the executive committee and then more discussion with the commissioners probably over the next 6 months as we move towards deciding what direction we want to go with fees.
That fee business has always been one of those really ambivalent areas because the Assembly, on one hand, is asking you to increase fees, and on the other hand, they're beating you up because the fees are preventing development. So I think we need to have a good story for that. On the economic development revenue piece that you got, the big concern that I have is that how much money are we putting on the street that's going to actually result in what I would call livable wage income opportunities throughout the community. So that's something that I think bears watching because some criticism that the EDC had in the past was that in the support of nonprofits exclusively, there wasn't always not a visible, but something that could be tangible in terms of we produce X amount of jobs, we help X amount of people, sort of improve their opportunity to survive down here. So I'm hoping that as you look at these programs going forward, now is that the piece that the EDC will continue to participate in? Is the acceptance of those projects?
Yeah, the EDC is still going to have some money over to do some sort of grant program, and we'll be meeting on Thursday afternoon. The EDC has come up with their own suggestions for a grant program. What my major concern is that whatever grant program the EDC decides on, that it is complementary to the economic development program that we're doing, the grant program that we're running for them. And I have every indication that it will be. And so we're trying to do that. But you're correct, Bill. I mean, the EDC spent a lot of time trying to quantify, if we give $25,000 to this organization, how many jobs does it create? Almost to the point of becoming a complete distraction. And there was a lot of work done in there, especially on the arts and culture side. There was a fairly comprehensive report that suggested for every $1 they spent, they generated $3 in economy. But that becomes so far removed from the original grant that those numbers start not to make a lot of sense too.
And by the way, the arts and culture number that they came up with was a number that they got from the Americans for the Arts. It was a national figure, and they, in my opinion, they sort of narrowed it down and said that's what was happening in the Cape.
So I think we're going to have a number of different measures, but you can see in some of the narrative, part of what we're going to do is cost of doing business analysis, market study analysis, which we now have the capacity to do with the software that we purchased partly through the grant. But then it's also going to be able to measure how successful we are in bringing resources, grant money, to the Cape, leveraging that 350 to bring in the grant money. But then additionally, we have to go, especially in these economic centers, and be able to measure and quantify how many new businesses have started, what's the new commercial activity, and ultimately get to a jobs number around that. And I think that we'll be able to do that. And we'll be able to do it now in large part because of the grant. I mean, it's allowed us to bring on a person who just does database management. So for the first time, we can get all of these things together. We can start to collect information, work with local assessors to get the baseline information, and then really sort of add value with information that's unique to the Cape in these economic centers, and be able to measure it over time.
Are you working with David Augustino from any of this?
We haven't worked directly with David in the Workforce Investment Board yet. He was an important part of the SEDS process and headed up one of the working groups there. So we continue to work with him on that. We haven't worked with him on specifically on measures, but I could, I imagine we'll be having a discussion.
This is a specific question because there is an office in Orleans that provides an opportunity for giving people who live on the lower central part of the Cape someplace to go without having to come all the way to Hyannis, and that has been is provided visibility for let's say some of the economic development activity that we've been doing, because we've been able to point to a facility that we're paying the rent for, that people can come and get help. So that's the kind of working together that I'd like to continue to see us do.
Right, I agree. Yeah.
Question, if I may, on the data, is that job description you sent along, we've already reviewed it, you haven't advertised for it yet, though?
We filled the position already.
You did fill it. I'm just curious on your response, good response, some picking response?
It was a small response, but good quality. There were, I think there were like 15 or so respondents, but there were good solid 5.
Yeah, there were 4 good applicants, but I think in that, you're forced into the decision of whether you're going to hire somebody who's kind of new and out of school,
right,
or somebody more experienced, and I think we tended towards somebody who was newer.
Okay,
So,
thanks. Thanks.
We got another question with regard to FTEs. You have 40. Again, that was my count.
Right.
On this budget, and 5 part-timers. Is that going to add to your head count?
Yeah, the FTE account goes from 37.5 last year to 41.
41.
Due entirely really to the EDC grant.
EDC grant. I wanted to talk a bit about the information technology infrastructure.
Yes.
And I know this is something, we have a report that was provided to us for the town, for the county. But I'm thinking in the long range of things that it's a little, not being totally conversant with a lot of the terminology on the infrastructure, more so on the applications. I'm just thinking about if we, and hopefully we will get this grant in February for the Open Cape, that somehow we ought to be working together on infrastructure as well as on data storage, security, applications, all that sort of thing. And I know it probably doesn't totally fit in to next year, but it should if the grant money comes in. And have we given any thought to how we might make that work, how we might work together to move these projects forward so that the commission as well as the county building benefits from that,
Yeah,
and the
well,
county departments?
If I understand the question, and I'm not sure I
I'm
completely
all
do.
over the map. And
I think
talking about
the
it.
IT report, we've kind of gotten off track of
Yeah.
the commission a little bit. I think the IT report covers a number of those things, and security was
Right,
obviously
that's
one
all
of
in
the
the
big
report, yeah.
issues. I thought they had a good idea in the report about convening an IT committee
Committee.
to give some, overall, I guess, prioritization support to the IT department,
Right.
because they have a tendency, they have to kind of run around and put out fires, because, the big challenge on the IT piece is going to be how do you afford all of that
Right.
stuff.
Oh, of
I mean,
course.
that's going to be the big challenge.
Actually, in that to bring it back to the commission budget, if I may, I noticed, Paul, and many of your goals are web-based,
Yeah.
and my question is, if assuming we adopt one of the recommendations, which is we outsource all of the web functions, web host functions, did your budget include that? And if not, is it possible to give a projection on what the impact would be?
We, as it relates to Open Cape, and then to get to the web-based thing, we're a significant client potentially for Open Cape, given our GIS capacity and the need to provide umbrella services, GIS services to the towns. We have a real need to be able to download and upload significant information that we don't have the capacity now. So we couldn't do that with Trora right now if we wanted to. On the other side of Open Cape, we'll be able to do that. So we've been working closely with them on that issue. But more and more, and Maggie points out all the demands, the things that we want to do that are IT related in order to make our information much more transparent and to allow us to work more efficiently than we can work now and to be more of more value to the communities. And so we need to do more of that. And so we continue to put pressure on the county's IT personnel source in a fairly significant way. And I think I'm hopeful that the IT report will probably get to that and isolate some of the personnel that we have as more of a help desk, and then on these larger issues, the web-based stuff, I think we're going to have to find money in the budget, and I think we have some money in some of our consulting line items that we've looked at to go out, maybe to outsource some of this.
And that was one of the significant recommendations, is especially if you have major projects like you do and Cape like Compact does, is to outsource them. Don't try to lay them
Especially
on-
if they're one time.
Yeah.
And I know in the past, I think one of the other departments has done some sort of web-based thing where they outsource and it didn't work out well. But I think, especially if we put together an IT committee, we can format those RFPs in a way that we're going to get a consultant to come in and have something that's a plug-and-play kind of situation. But these larger ones, I think, are clearly the web-based stuff. We're going to have to outsource it, and so then, the county IT department is going to have to run a help desk, and then they're going to have to be able to manage consultants.
Well, we probably won't take this up. I look to see they're on not until the 20th. But at some point, we are going to have to talk about the report.
Exactly,
But
yeah.
but the coordination and the working together, and we can't get to too much of it until we know if we have Open Cape, because that changes the landscape.
Well, it doesn't. It's independent about.
It is
Right.
independent.
We
Okay.
need to do what we need to do, whether
Right.
Open Cape is or is not.
Right, that's why the
That's
question
right.
was a little, I
Yeah.
asked if, specifically to Paul, on our websites, they're hosted in-house. One of the key recommendations is let's host them
Right.
out-house.
Right.
So for the Cape by Compact, we have the funds, and we're ready to do that yesterday actually. And
Yeah, and I
my
think
question for you is, and it was likewise, forgot to ask it of George, do they have some consulting? I believe you said you have some consulting dollars. We just don't know the cost of that.
Well, let me just jump in, because
Yeah.
Gail and I have had a couple of conversations about the personnel budget, and she did things a little bit differently than I had done. We got to work out, what that is. But base numbers were very close. there may be some room in their personnel budget to deal with some of that. And even after you tackle this, the retroactive piece, there may even be some money in their budget to deal with
Okay,
that.
I just want to
So-
make sure that this doesn't get
Lost.
left out.
No, it's-
and
it's
that
not,
this
'cause
whole planning thing
Because
it comes together.
The compact's ready to go. We're ready to go on some of these larger projects too. So we should do it jointly because we're talking about the exact same service.
Bill?
Okay, I want to, one of the recommendations I made when I reviewed the IT report was that this committee be formed, and that one of us, one of the county commissioners, and I would like to do that, be on that committee to show how important it is to implement it and, and get it running. The other piece is that I don't think we've clearly defined the difference between security of external, let's say, access and the security of internal operations. And I think that's one of the things that we have to look at that supports the idea of externalizing or say, of having web hosting that is outside of the county, because that would protect the servers that are that are working on internal information. So that's one of the things that I think going forward we have to make a decision on what are we trying to protect internally so that we safeguard what we're doing.
Yeah, that's a very macro decision.
Yeah.
And I think the county's already made a decision that they're going to have their own server farm here and host things. So now the question is, are you going to have a backup that's in the cloud somewhere?
But in any case, I
So,
think we need to go
well,
forward.
anyway,
on
as
that.
long as it's on the table and we know that that's a piece of something that we have to do together.
Yeah, it's one of our more important issues.
Okay. The other, I don't know where it is exactly in your budget, but you had started a program of outreach and visiting communities. It's my hope that that's something you're continuing with. The other part of that is I know that I think we're both on. You're on the executive committee of the Business Roundtable, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you're in communication with them.
Yep.
You might think about talking to Elliot about the charter review process, because that's something they're taking a stand on. So you might be able to give him some insight as to where the Cape Cod Commission fits into the charter review. Right. It's an important part of the governance, part of the charter review. Since they want to go to the mayors of cities rather than talk out of the county commissioner.
Oh, yeah.
Say that again?
Yeah.
Maybe
now it's
not.
very subtly.
I'm aware of
What about staying on point?
But I would be happy
No.
to talk to him. But as
Yeah,
far as
sure,
the outreach, it continues. So we're already underway this year to get to 15 boards of selectmen. We've already been to Bourne and Brewster, and we have Yarmouth and Eastham, and I think we'll be done with all 15 from the commission's perspective by April. And Harwich just notified me by email today that they want me to keep my comments to 10 minutes. So I think we're headed in the right direction.
So this budget that you've presented will take you through phase 1 of the SEDS project.
Yeah, it'll take us through the first annual update of the SEDS process. And we're starting to get some feedback. Open Cape, obviously something we expect to hear on pretty soon. And we did not get the biofuels grant. Yeah. That was very competitive, and it seemed to go to, the federal money seemed to go to states that had tighter races coming up in November than Massachusetts did. But we're undeterred by that, so there are other funding opportunities other than that particular DOE grant, so that we will continue to move forward on that.
Good.
Did you, anything?
Yeah, anything? Go back to my notes. See what I have
Well, the main question I had was about headcount. You've answered that. Okay. And of course, there's always that that magical musical question, is that a lot of this is contingent upon availability of your revenue resource.
Right.
And how much of your revenue, your anticipated revenue resource, has a high probability of delivery versus possibility? I guess that would be the question. He might answer by saying.
Well, the
"We don't know."
assessment is 100%.
Yeah, 100% for most of it, or a lot of it. And on the others, Gail always makes some very conservative estimates on what's coming in. You know, obviously legal expenses this year were up, given the Cape Wind scenario, and we are up in front of the SJC on February 11th on that. So hopefully we're through most of that financial obligation as it relates to that.
Ooh. Yeah, on February 11th, you're on that, and just before that, DCPC is coming before the Cape Cod Commission.
On the January 21st.
Okay, and I think that one of the pieces as we go through the process is that the Cape Cod Commission members should be aware that the commissioners have supported it. However, we want to make sure that they, in their deliberate process, that they evaluate all of the places where exceptions can be anticipated, so that we don't have, we're like we had in Craigville, where people come up, every week somebody else is showing up to say, I didn't bring that me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This actually is a grid that has all the 15 towns on it, the outreach we've done in anticipation of the 21st to make sure that they all know that they've got to get any projects that they have that they want to be exempt from the moratorium. And I've talked to many of the town administrators myself. So we should be ready to go on the 21st with a limited moratorium. And then 60 days, if the commission accepts it on the 21st, 60 days after that, it'll be in front of the assembly for their designation. And then we'll have a year to work with the 15 towns to come up with what we're going to do out there. I hope it doesn't take a year, but I think there's going to be a really unique process that the commissioners are going to sponsor. So this is bringing these 15 boards of selectmen and town councils together to make some very important determinations out there is going to be, I think, a first-time process.
Now, do you want us to come and testify on the 21st?
I would, yeah.
Is that 2 or 3?
Great, it's at 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock.
I think part of the reason why we don't have a lot of detailed questions for you is because we've had very frequent communication with you over the course of the last year. We're very knowledgeable about the efforts that the commission has made over the past year and what you need to do because of the whole SENSE project itself, which I think drives a lot of what your initiatives are for the coming year. So it isn't, I mean, one of the largest probably areas of the county is Cape Cod Commission, but I think it's the familiarity we have with their work.
Yeah, I would say in general, after my first year here, what we want to do is stop taking general funds from the county and to become more self-sufficient that way. And to the extent that we're going to accept county funds from other sources, they would be for targeted programs. Any personnel would be associated with that. So I think we're running it in a much more efficient way now, where you've got the money there, it's targeted for certain people, certain capacity, with definite measures. And then when the money goes away, the organization changes. So.
Maggie?
I just had one comment on your budget, which is linked to your goals on education of employees and professional development. You have funds for next year. I just want to remind you that if any of your new managers have not participated in the ICMA training, it's starting next week, and registration is getting kind of full. So because we will not be offering it next fiscal year.
Right.
So this is the opportunity to do it. Would be this year for your employees who have not participated.
Could you tell me ICMA?
International City and County Managers Association offers a supervisory training. It's a 5-week, all 1 day a week class. So I just wanted to let you know, in case you were planning on that for next year, it will not be offered next year.
Who's going to be offering it again this year?
We are sponsoring it. Jerry Bruno is licensed ICMA trainer in Massachusetts, so it's his class. Just a reminder.
Great.
Good. Do you have any questions for us?
No, I mean, you're busy in the budget.
Just one further
Yeah.
question.
Sure.
And this is very important to me, that in addition to all of the other hopes that I had for the transfer of the funding from EDC over to your operation, is that it has been a wish of mine that it actually leverage money coming in for economic development. And I would view with great joy the first penny of that comes in because you've leveraged it from some other source other than within the county itself.
Yep. No, and that's the main focus. And one of the areas that we're working on, which is probably a 2-year process, but it is getting the Cape designated as Economic Development District. And once designated, like Serpent is actually designated that way. And so at least $60,000 a year comes in directly from the feds, not through the state as a sub-grantee, to the district to support that. And so I think what we'll be able to, I know what we'll be able to do is to get that designation in there. And then to the extent that that kind of money is coming in, perhaps we can give more of that money back to the EDC for a more robust grant program. So it's really the 3-year commitment at $350 is about building a program, building some sustainability in that program to free up more of that license plate money in years 4, 5, and 6 for larger grant programs that can support now, a more robust economic development function.
One final thing. In March, I'll be going to the National Association of County Officials, and one of the committees that I sit on is Environment and Land Use. They have been helpful to Barnstable County, I believe, in the past by supporting initiatives that we're interested in. For example, the Energy Efficiency Committee development block grants, and I believe that we've seen that money yet. Okay, but we're anticipating any second. They put that as part of their platform. If there were any issues that you think should be put into that platform, I'm in a position to put that in there so that we would get help from that organization to move that forward as far as at the federal level. I have a great wish that we have direct access to federal funds so it doesn't go through the filter of administrative burden through the state before we see it. We also would have more access to a better chunk of money that way too. So let me know between now and the end of February what suggestions you have on that.
Great. I will.
That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yes. The value of communication.
Yes.
Well, we'll be communicating a lot on
Yes, we will.
wind energy over the next
Oh, yes, that was
Yes.
interesting
Exciting.
news.
We never met, so we're going to reschedule that.
Yes.
Okay. You have another one.
I don't know.